You cannot create meaningful impact when you are in survival mode. I really want a dramatic pause there. I know it feels weird when there's like space, but like, let me repeat, you cannot create meaningful impact when you are in survival mode, right? The people that I serve want to change the world in one way, shape, or form, right? That's why we call them helpers, right? They are very impact driven people, right? The problem is that you are currently too exhausted to do the work of changing the world, friend. Right. This is why I talk about pivoting so much and helping you rebuild your foundation is step one of pivoting, right? Because you cannot create the impact that you are deeply craving when you yourself are in survival mode, right? So in this episode, I want to give you 3 things to help you get out of survival mode. I feel like I need to do this episode like every few months uh, to keep reminding us to not settle. Okay, so first of all, let's just be clear about what we're talking about when we say survival mode. Okay. A lot of times when we hear survival mode, we think number one, income, right? People not bringing any income. And of course, there are plenty of people that fall in that boat. But I need to expand our definition because most of my clients do not fall in that boat, right? They are successful in surviving, which is a completely different conversation, right? It is not, survival mode is not just about being money poor. You could be happiness poor. You could be time poor. You could be relationship poor, right? The truest definition of survival mode has more to do with operating from short-term thinking predominantly, like all the time. We need to have a greater balance, right? If I'm constantly putting out fires in my business, and I'm rarely, thinking long term, despite the fact that I want to think long term. It is a desire. I understand the importance, but what I'm actually doing is focused on the day to day. That is called survival mode. And I know people who are making millions of dollars, $500,000, multiple 6 figures, and are still 100% in survival mode. And they would tell you that. Okay. There were a couple of things that prompted this episode. One was a TikTok video where someone was basically talking about, 1 month they have $300,000 in their account, like no joke. And then 2 months later, they are 1 month away from living in a cardboard box, right? And that cycle repeats in one way, shape, or form. And he was basically encouraging people not to get in entrepreneurship because it's the craziest ride. Despite having more money than he's ever imagined, he also is also broker than he's ever imagined, right? And that was for the first video. Then I saw another. I don't think this was a video. I think this was actually somebody writing a post, and they were basically talking about having lost someone that they loved, and how in entrepreneurship you don't have sick days, you don't have PTO, and how you can't slow down, right? The emails don't stop, the deadlines don't stop, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is an example of survival mode, right? Because the truth is you should be able to stop. There should be ways that things that you have built into your business, right, to be able to stop. Now, to be clear, I'm not making light of these things. I'm not suggesting that these things are easy to navigate. I'm also not saying that I haven't made some of these mistakes myself. What I am saying is that these are solvable problems, right? These are things that we don't actually have to live with. That's the point that I want you to be able to see, right? Another example is I was listening to someone who was there basically on the second half of their life, because all of my clients are over 40 for the most part. And they basically were talking about, do I keep doing this business? I've been in the business for 10, 15 years. They were single. And the question was more around, they're making money, but do I want to keep working this hard? Right. And I need to be thinking more about retirement, where I'm putting money. Like, the point is, survival mode can look lots of different ways. Okay. That's what I want you to hear. And the other thing I want you to hear is going to be hard. I know, but somebody got to tell you, friend. Somebody has to tell you what you are currently avoiding. I literally just had a conversation with a client a few minutes ago who she said, I would not have thought I was an avoidant person But over the last few weeks and looking back at the last few months, I realized I am far more avoidant than what I've thought. And it's like, yes, the truth is we as human beings are wired to avoid in lots of ways. And then if you start adding Western culture and all of these other things, it's like, yes, whether you think you are avoiding, you're not solving the problems that are happening in your business. How long have you had a cash flow issue? How long have you not been happy with doing all the things in your business? Right? That's called avoidance, right? It's like when I say this next sentence, it's gonna hurt somebody. I get it. You might not listen to this podcast no more. I also understand that. Do what's best for you, okay? But what I would say is like there are sometimes things are a season and sometimes things are a cycle. Okay. And living in survival mode is a choice. Now, visiting survival mode is not a choice. There are plenty of things that could happen to you that might put you in survival mode. Right? So I'm not suggesting that you are never in survival mode, right? I could have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars saved up, but if a hurricane comes, or if my mother gets sick, and it's like, then I drain my savings, and it's like, oh, I might be in survival mode for a season, despite the fact that I was, somewhat prepared as an example. Okay. So I'm not suggesting that we can avoid being in survival mode. I am suggesting that we can 100% not live in survival mode. That is called a cycle, not a season. There are so many things that are normal in entrepreneurship, but we forget that normal doesn't mean healthy. Like it doesn't mean healthy. It doesn't mean we have to live that way. Okay, so I'm not saying never, I'm saying rarely. Okay. Here's the thing that I want you to be able to think about as we talk about being in survival mode. The business is not the problem when you're in survival mode. And I'm saying this with love, okay? I'm saying it with love. Know that I care about you. You're the problem. I know. Okay. I'm not saying that the business doesn't have a problem, right? Here's a good example of what I mean. So I was listening to Dave Ramsey. I think it was one of the call-in shows that I saw on social media, right? And he was basically saying that single people feel like they deserve everything, right? He was talking about it from a budget standpoint and how they just reward themselves all the time. And my first thought was like, who is this fool talking to? Because what? Don't come for me because I operate just like that, right? But after I got done being offended, okay, by the truth, by the way, because why are you talking directly to me in this matter when I did not ask for that? Get your life. I then eventually realized, LaChelle, you need to get your life together. Right? Like this idea that you deserve shoes, clothes, things that you literally are harming you. You're fat. Okay, you gotta get your life together. Because if I have a bad day, guess what? I'm finna treat me. What do you mean? And if I have a good day, guess what I'm also gonna do? Treat me. What do you mean? Nobody's gonna take better care than me. Okay, see how that's a problem? Like this is an example of how the food is not the problem, the business is not the problem, right? It's like I'm the problem. Okay. If you can't take time away from the work because the cash flow is inconsistent or whatever, right? Fill in the blank with whatever it is. Whatever it is that's pissing you off, it has a solution. But are you solving it? Okay. That's what I want you to be able to hear. Are you solving it? Okay. So here are the 3 things I'm going to offer to you if you find yourself in a season of survival mode. Number 1, understand stages and seasons and be both aware and accepting. I could go and do a whole podcast on this, but here's what I mean by this. If I'm in a season where I don't have a lot of leads, okay, number 1, I need to be aware of that, which we often are. Okay, check, got it. But I also need to be accepting of that. And this is where we get in our own way because we think we're accepting of something just because we know it. We know we got a lead problem. We are very much aware that we don't have enough leads coming into our business. But acceptance is not the same as awareness. Awareness is saying, I have a lead problem. Acceptance is, here's what I'm going to do about the fact that I have a lead problem. Right? So one of the most powerful things that you can do to get yourself out of a season of survival mode is awareness and acceptance. What am I aware of? What am I avoiding? Avoiding is a whole nother conversation. Okay. But that's the first tip that I want to offer you. Name the season that you're in. Okay. Identify the problems, i.e., awareness, and then start coming up with solutions on how you are going to solve those problems, get out of avoidance, and get into acceptance. Okay. That's one tip. The second thing, which sometimes is a cuss word, depending on, especially among like my successful, seasoned entrepreneurs, which is sacrifice. Okay. There again, I'm single and it's like sacrifice. Deprive myself? Why would I do that? That doesn't seem like love. Okay. You get to a certain point and you're like, no, I earned this. And it's like, yes, okay. But like, we need to be making decisions based off of the first thing I said, the season that we're in. Right. So let me give you another example, right? Because I don't want you to walk away feeling like, she offended me. I might offended you. I'm okay with that part. But like, just know I'm in a boat that I'm also dealing with all these things. I might be in a different step than you, but this is a human condition. This is an entrepreneur condition. Again, lots of people are in survival mode, especially when we expand the definition. Okay. So here's an example of what I mean by sacrifice. Okay. I do not cook. Do not ask me to cook. Full stop, period, exclamation point. Cook. What are we talking about? My kids are fully old. Okay. At the time of this recording, we are 19 and 29. Okay. I've been cooking for 30 years. Get somebody else to do it. Don't make me go on a rant because I will. Okay. So I cook one time a year after a Christmas party every year. I cook all the food. Okay. I go all out. I don't cook no other time. I mean, I do cook other time, but not the only when I'm being held at gunpoint. Okay. Or I'm deeply in love. Those are the only two choices. There is no in between. Okay. But guess what I have done at different seasons? Fucking cooked. Why, you ask? It's such a great question, right? Because in a world full of messages that say, do what you love and follow your passion and only do what you like, these messages lack the nuance required to implement the advice well, right? The reason why I've had seasons where I've cooked anyway is because I had money goals. I had goals to either pay off debt or save or reinvest in the business or whatever it is that I wanted to do. Right. And I don't know if y'all know, but when you eat out a lot, it costs thousands of dollars. Like I don't have a $500 grocery budget. What? No, I don't. That's like, no, I could. I'm a single person. No, I don't cook. I eat out, and eating out is expensive. So there are seasons where I'm like, LaChelle, you need to get your life together. We're not doing that. Right. This is a great example of you need to learn to operate from your vision, not just your values. Again, a whole nother podcast. But my vision is like, oh, here's the goal. Here's the season I'm in. Here's what I'm building in this season. I need to make my decisions based off that vision. Vision has stages. It doesn't mean I have to spend the rest of my life cooking and doing something I don't want to do. You don't sacrifice for the rest of your life. You sacrifice for a season. Okay. So I said all that to say, stop avoiding sacrifice, friend. Okay. It's not your friend. Here's the last one that I will leave you with. One of the most powerful things that you can do is to move from sacrifice to move into stewardship. Stewardship is about accepting what you have, emphasis on accepting, okay? And then learning to manage what you have well versus longing for what you don't have, focusing on what you don't have. A lot of times we do not approach things from a place of stewardship. But if you started to approach things from a place of stewardship, you know what would happen? That thing would grow. Whatever it is that you want to grow, it would grow because that's what stewardship does. Whether it's the child, whether it's the money, whether it's your health, right? Stewardship focuses on what you have and taking good care of it. So the three things that I want you to think about that will help you begin to get out of survival mode: the season that you're in, being aware of it and accepting it, understanding what sacrifices you need to make based on the season that you're in, and getting better and better at stewardship. That is what I want you to be able to focus on if you are to make the impact that you deeply desire to make. because you will never make the impact that you want so long as you are in survival mode, friend.